Hare Krishna, and welcome to this week's virtual Sunday feast here at the home of Sri Sri Kishore Kishori. On behalf of Srila Prabhupada, a big welcome to everyone. Thank you so much for joining on this Sunday afternoon. Really quick, I want to thank everybody who took the time to either attend or support the ISKCON Chicago Ram Navami Festival. Just given the current COVID situation, a big congratulations to all of the devotees that helped to make it the best festival possible, given the circumstances, as well as the team that allowed us to participate remotely through the online class. I'd like to turn it over to tonight's Kirtan leader. Her name is Amba, and she is going to be leading us in Narsima prayer. She is a student of Radhakund Mataji at the Vamsi Vaishnav School of Music. Thank you so much for taking on the service, and she'll be accompanied by Nirantara Prabhu, who some of you may be familiar with, and is also a teacher of a lot of the now older youth generation of devotees here in the Chicago and Naperville areas. So thank you so much, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances of Lord Srila Prabhupada. Namaste Narasingaya
thank you so much for leading. It was really, really lovely. And yeah. Next, we will turn over to tonight's speaker, Her Grace Ananda Vrindavan Mataji. So for those of you who are not familiar, she currently serves as the temple president of ISKCON DC and has been so for many years now. And I also personally really appreciate just the investment and effort that she makes in making the experience at that temple very open and newcomer friendly. I still remember the time I visited that they have this whole system, like there's greeters and ushers, and you even get a coupon for the bake sale the first time you go there. At least they did at the time I was there. And that was like, wow, we got to do some of this stuff in Chicago. This was so nice. But that's just the latest in her long career as a devotee serving Srila Prabhupada's movement. She was the principal of the ISKCON Vrindavan Gurukul and just many other things, originally from Ireland, but now here in the States, serving at ISKCON DC. So she's going to continue our Brilliant as the Sun series tonight by giving us an overview of the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the 15th chapter, titled Truth and Beauty.
And what an amazing chapter this is. Thank you. Good evening, Chicago. And I'm so happy to be here with all of you. Yeah, the 15th chapter is a pivotal chapter. And it not only shines a light on beauty, but it also shines a light on the essential truth of Krishna's personal form. So let's just take a moment to settle our minds and our hearts and our bodies into the next short while together while we're hearing about and reflecting on this Bhagavatam, this Brilliant of the Sun Bhagavatam, brilliant like the sun. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So for this overview, basically, we're going to, the demigods make an inquiry. The demigods are a little worried because there's a lot of darkness and heavy energy around. And they're wondering, how can these demons who are still being kept within the womb of Diti for 100 years, how can they actually already start causing such disturbance? Who are they? And then Brahma introduces how they came to be. So we have the overview of the chapter is basically the story of how the four Kumaras, those beautiful young saintly sages, went to Vaikuntha and they were stopped by the gatekeepers. So then the gatekeepers were cursed, and then Lord Narayan comes and prayers are offered. So that's basically it in a nutshell. So I'm going to share 10 thoughts that I have or had while reading and reflecting on this chapter. So the first one is the first text 11 to 22 really describe the beauty of the Vaikuntha world. And beauty is powerful. And it is very impactful, even in this world. And everywhere you have Krishna, you have beauty. Everywhere you have the mode of goodness, you have beauty. Nature is endowed with incredible beauty. So when the four Kumaras traveled to Vaikuntha, they came across this incredibly beautiful place. Natural beauty, the natural beauty and purity of the Vaikuntha forests, flowers, and fruits The residents were glorious, similar in form to the Lord, and exquisitely beautiful. The entire land was fragrant with blossoming flowers and alive with buzzing bees. So that just gives us a little glimpse of the beauty of Vaikuntha. And one immediate lesson to take away from that, of course, is that we need to create beautiful environments in our life as practicing devotees of Krishna. Krishna himself is all attractive. He attracts everyone by his beauty. He stops everybody in their tracks by his beauty. There's that famous verse, don't go down to the banks of the Jamuna, because if you see that threefold bending form of Krishna, that's it. Your life is finished. You'll have no more taste for the material world. Of course, that makes us all want to go down there. But really, for our own spiritual nourishment and our own spiritual practice in bhakti, it's really, really important to be very intentional about creating and immersing ourselves in beautiful spiritual environments. Temples are one way that we attract, the conditioned souls are attracted because of the beauty of the deity. So yeah, immerse yourself, go for walks in nature, create that beauty around us, and make sure that we create beautiful environments at our temple. That's actually an educational principle in some of the very influential educational philosophies in the world. So interestingly, in that Vaikuntha planet, the women, the beautiful goddesses, the women in Vaikuntha, sweep and dust the palace marble, although dust does not exist in Vaikuntha, Prabhupada says in the purport. So cleanliness, we know, is one of the most powerful elements of beauty. So Prabhupada explains why these beautiful ladies like to clean. He says, there is no need to sweep the stone in Vaikuntha, for there's hardly any dust on it. But still, in order to satisfy the Lord, the ladies there always engage in dusting the marble walls. Why? The reason is that they are eager to achieve the grace of the Lord by doing so. Seva, the power of service, and particularly the power of this idea of very humble, very menial kind of service, the service of cleaning, even when there really isn't any major dirt. We don't really have that problem in this world. We have plenty of dirt to keep cleaning. But again, this is a little invitation for all of us to never pass up an opportunity to clean for the Lord, because because the ladies in Vaikuntha are eager to get the grace of the Lord, and we should also be eager to get that grace. So the second point we meet here in this chapter is we learn about Tulsi Devi, and it's described in Vaikuntha that although the flowers in Vaikuntha are unimaginably beautiful and fragrant, the flowers themselves acknowledge that Tulsi Devi is superior. And the reason Tulsi Devi is superior to all other flowers is because the Lord prefers Tulsi's leaves and flowers to all the other flowers. Now, this is a beautiful reminder for all of us, because we again interact with Tulsi so much in our life, and sometimes we may take Tulsi Devi for granted, but she is extraordinary, and she's highlighted in this chapter. And Prabhupada says something very beautiful. He says, connected to Tulsi, and he tells us that there's one most important thing about the spiritual world. the most important thing about the spiritual world. And if you don't remember anything else from this class this evening, try to remember this one. Listen to what he says. Tulsi plants and their leaves are very important in devotional service. Devotees are recommended to water the Tulsi tree every day and collect leaves to worship the Lord. But here it is. The most important thing about the spiritual world is that there is no envy among the devotees there. This is true even among the flowers, which are all conscious of the greatness of Tulsi. So there's no envy in the spiritual world. This, Prabhupada said, is the most important thing about the spiritual world. And he's talking about how the flowers just unanimously agree that Tulsi Devi is the best. And there's no tinge of envy there. So envy is a big issue for those of us still in this material world. It's practically the substance of our false ego and the reason that we chose to leave the spiritual world in the first place. And because envy really is so self-centered, right? We're looking at something, we might even be appreciating something or someone, and somebody's doing something better than we're doing. And then there's this pinch of envy, like, why not me? Or I could probably just do that as good as everybody else, and so on and so forth. And I wanted to read you a nice quote about envy from His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami. He says, we should remember that whenever we feel sad, disturbed, and envious of another's success, we are unqualified for the blessings of spiritual life. In these circumstances, we must work on ourselves to dissolve our selfish motivations so that eventually that we can reach the point of being happy and enthusiastic for the accomplishments of others. We are always enhanced rather than diminished by another person's growth. We are always enhanced rather than diminished by another person's growth. So when we find ourselves being envious, and we all know what it feels like, it's this pinch in the heart, then we need to catch ourselves and we need to redirect our minds. We need to acknowledge that emotion. We need to say, yep, I'm still not there. I've still got this envy hovering around me. And we need to redirect it into a vision of appreciation, of acknowledging that that person's success brings all of us up. So the next point in Lord Brahma is describing the four Kumaras coming into Vaikuntha, and he's describing the beauty of Vaikuntha. And he, in this next section, as he's glorifying Vaikuntha, he then actually glorifies how fortunate it is to be a human being. And Lord Brahma describes that, that to take a human birth, we get this opportunity to bypass illusion and attain the Lord's abode. So it's a reminder again that we are so fortunate and can be so fortunate, although we often don't take advantage of that or become unfortunate. And Prabhupada says a little bit about this. He says, humans hold many conventions, meetings, and discussions to solve the problems of this worldly situation, where they can remain only for a few years, but they are not interested in understanding the spiritual situation of the Vaikuntha world. If they are at all fortunate, they become interested in going back home, back to Godhead. But unless they understand the spiritual world, they rot in this material darkness continuously. So being unfortunate is actually a pretty heavy thing. It means we get stuck here in the material world. And Prabhupada goes on to describe, of course, the power of the fortunate opportunity, the chanting of the Mahamantra, and just glorifying Krishna's activities brings the greatest fortune in our life. And as the Shikshastakam prayers help us lament that because we have no taste for it, we are so unfortunate. So just by coming together weekly, by showing up on these calls, by trying to stay connected with devotees, we keep ourselves in that river of good fortune. And that's really important, because as we'll see later on, that really our good fortune is also just made up of mercy and blessings. So the four Kumaras are in this Vaikuntha world. They're absolutely relishing its beauty, and they go through the different gates to get towards seeing Lord Narayan. And they come to the final gate and they meet the doorkeepers. And they're obstructed by the doorkeepers, that you can't go in. Who are you? They basically, in one sense, the doorkeepers are just doing their job. But in another sense, as the four Kumaras say later on, you know, nobody comes into Vaikuntha without being qualified. So why are you treating us as if we're unqualified? Because we wouldn't have gotten so far if we had any material contamination. So you can see this, you know, Leela, the threads of Leela, how Krishna sets this up. So the four Kumaras are stopped and they get disturbed. They get a little angry and they curse Jai and Vijay. They say, you know, you are not acting properly. You should not, you actually have to leave this place. Now, interestingly, this curse, there's a lot of curses happened in the Bhagavatam, and, you know, the whole start of the Bhagavatam is the Brahman's curse for Maharaj Parikshit, but which is a very impactful curse, and you know, begins basically, you know, opens the doors wide for Kali Yuga to come in. But this curse, particularly the curse that the four Kumaras offered or gave to Jan Vijay, they trigger three big leelas and connections. The first curse is connected to Lord Nrsingadev and Prahlad, because the demons come as Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. Then they take a second birth. They're also again Ravana and Kumbhakarna, I think. And then the third curse, of course, is Kamsa and Kalanemi. So it's a pretty pivotal moment. And the minute they're cursed, Jai and Vijay totally get it. They regret it. And we'll listen to their request in a minute. But before we leave this section, Prabhupada talks in his purport about how, you know, disharmony happens. Disharmony happens in the world when we don't follow religious principles. And he gives us really amazing purport. And he says, Krishna conscious religious principles bring harmony. If we can adopt the same principles in our own society, whether wholly or partially, then we will turn our society into Vaikuntha. If the members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, putting faith in Krishna in the center, live in harmony according to the order and principles of Bhakti, Bhagavad Gita, then they are living in Vaikuntha and not in the material world. It's a good thing to ask ourselves. Am I living in such a way that I'm creating or I'm contributing to a Vaikuntha atmosphere? Or am I living not in harmony with the principles of the Bhagavad Gita? And am I creating disharmony? Now, it's very easy for all of us to look at other people and point out how much disharmony they're making. But really, the practice of spiritual life is to look at ourselves and to say, okay, you know, how am I actually living the teachings? How am I embodying the principles of the Gita? And there's 6 beautiful principles. I always love to talk about these, the Gita values. And they're principles of how we can see the world, how a devotee has a vision of the world, how the devotee acts in the world, and how a devotee's character is. And those principles are equal vision, samadarshana, and choice. That's how a devotee sees the world and sees everybody. Equal vision, spiritual foundation, and that we all have a choice. We all have a choice when it comes to not only how we live in life, but how we choose to re-engage with our relationship with Krishna. Our actions or deeds in the world should be governed by the principles of ahimsa, non-violence, and also the acharya principle. We should act in such a way that we know that we're acting with integrity. We walk our talk. We act in a way, in an exemplary way. And then the third pair of the six Gita values are what are the principles covering our character? And those are principles of humility and affection. So bringing our life into harmony with the teachings of the Gita, Prabhupada says, that is what's going to bring a Vaikuntha atmosphere in the world. And when there's an atmosphere of Vaikuntha in the world, or in our temples, or in our homes, or in our workplaces, magic happens, Krishna magic happens. And people are brought up to the level of the mode of goodness. And of course, that's the stepping stone into really, really opening their hearts and their minds and their consciousness to loving and serving Krishna. Okay, so the curse has been given, and Jai and Vijay really regret what they, how they treated the four Kumaras. And they asked the four Kumaras to please not so much forgive them, because they were really accepting of their fate. And they said, yeah, we did something wrong, we deserve this. But they asked one thing, and this comes up again at the end of this chapter. They said, we pray that due to your compassion at our repentance, the illusion of forgetting the Supreme Personality of Godhead will not come upon us as we go progressively downward. So their one request was, we don't really care where we go. We accept this curse, but please, please, we beg you, do not let us forget Krishna. Very important. And this is a simple prayer for all of us. And no matter where we are or what we do, we should be always praying, please, Krishna, let me not forget you. Let me not forget your holy name. Let me not forget you. So the minute the curse is also given, the Lord heard of it, and he came. And he came very quickly. And he didn't even wait for any of his carriers. He came running on his 2 feet, the acharyas say, because the four Kumaras wanted to take shelter of the Lord's lotus feet. And so he came particularly and sweetly to reciprocate with their desire. So the Lord came. And here we're introduced to this incredible description of the Lord's beauty, more beauty, right? And the four Kumaras, and here is this lovely, sweet sense of transformation in this chapter is the four Kumaras could not take their eyes off the Lord. And really, they have been trained and have been, they have been fixed in meditation on this idea of the formlessness of Brahman. And so this beauty just overwhelms them. And there's just amazing descriptions. I just highly recommend you all go into this chapter and read these super beautiful descriptions of the Lord, and what they saw. So here, and he stood directly in front of them, right? And they were basically awestruck, like awesomeness, right? Here's the verse. As he, the Lord, came forward, accompanied by his own associates bearing all paraphernalia, such as the umbrella and a chamber fan, the white bunches of hair moved very gently like two swans due to their favorable breeze. The pearls garlanding the umbrella also moved like drops of nectar falling from the white full moon, or ice melting due to a gust of wind. The Lord is the reservoir of all pleasure. His auspicious presence is meant for everyone's benediction, and his affectionate smiling and glancing touch the core of the heart. The Lord's beautiful bodily color is blackish, and his broad chest is the resting place of the goddess of fortune, who glorifies the entire spiritual world, the summit of all heavenly planets. Thus it appeared that the Lord was personally spreading the beauty and good fortune of the spiritual world. Beauty, beauty, beauty. It's really the essence of truth is beauty. The essence of the absolute truth is beauty. And it has to be, because the absolute truth has form. So the four Kumaras were just looking at this, and they finally bowed down after, they just couldn't take their eyes off the Lord. So, but there's this lovely purport that Prabhupada gives in one of the texts, text 42 in this section, and he connects the Lord's Vaikuntha beauty to the Lord's beauty in Vrindavan. Listen to this. In the words of the Vaishnava poets, it is said that the Lord's beauty is so enchanting that it defeats hundreds and thousands of cupids. He is therefore called Madan Mohan. It is also described that the Lord sometimes becomes mad after the beauty of Radharani. Poets describe that under those circumstances, although Lord Krishna is Madan Mohan, he becomes Madana Daha, or enchanted by the beauty of Radharani. Actually, the Lord's beauty is super excellent, surpassing even the beauty of Lakshmi in Vaikuntha. The devotees of the Lord in the Vaikuntha planet want to see the Lord as the most beautiful. But the devotees in Gokula or Krishna Loka want to see Radharani as more beautiful than Krishna. So that is the heart. That is Prabhupada's heart, and that is the heart of our Krishna Bhakti Vaishnava practice. Just this incredible, sweet relationship of love between Radha and Krishna. Okay, so just a few more. I'm on point number 8. So as if we didn't get enough with the Lord coming personally and this incredible beauty, and the four Kumaras are just like awestruck, then just as that was all happening, a breeze carrying the aroma of tulsi, the tulsi leaves decorating the Lord's lotus feet, entered their nostrils. They smelled the fragrance of Tulsi Devi, and their minds and bodies became affected. And it says that the four Kumaras, they were so advanced, they were such powerful yogis, they were even beyond the mode of goodness. But the transcendental aroma of Tulsi transformed them. After this class, you should all go find a Tulsi Devi or a greenhouse full of Tulsis and take her gift. And the transformation, this was a transformation. Rather than desiring to become one with the Lord, they now desired to serve him. So if any time you're feeling a little discouraged in devotional service, if there's any time you're thinking it's too hard or it's too difficult, or you're just dry, if there's times where you feel a certain, like you've reached a plateau and it's kind of all becoming dutiful, there's no taste, go sit by Tulsi Devi for a while. Go serve Tulsi Devi for a while, because she can transform you with desires to serve Krishna. So the four Kumaras were then just again bumped to a whole other level of experience right there at the doorway at Vaikuntha, with the gatekeepers that were just cursed and the Lord himself who was there in front of them. And really, they watched him face to face. And I just want to read another description of the Lord. I know there's a lot of descriptions, but this is the last one. And here's what they saw. The Lord's beautiful face appeared to them like the inside of a blue lotus. And the Lord's smile appeared to be a blossoming jasmine flower. After seeing the face of the Lord, the sages were fully satisfied. And when they wanted to see him more, they looked upon the nails of his lotus feet, which resembled rubies. Thus they viewed the Lord's transcendental body again and again, and so they finally achieved meditation on the Lord's personal feature. Prabhupada promises us one day we can see the Lord face to face. But in the meantime, we can really meditate deeply and fill our eyes and our hearts with these descriptions of the Lord. Okay, and the final point is again, now the Jain Vijay did realize that they had made a mistake, but as we come to the end of this chapter, the four Kumaras also were a little anxious because now they had seen the Lord and they had transformed. So they are glorifying the Lord, but they also have a request and a prayer not to forget the Lord. And it says, persons who are very expert and most intelligent in understanding things as they are engage in hearing narrations of the auspicious activities and pastimes of the Lord, which are worth chanting and worth hearing. Such persons do not even care for the highest material benediction, namely liberation, to say nothing of other less important benedictions, like material happiness or heavenly kingdom. And here's their prayer. O Lord, we pray that you let us be born in any hellish condition of life, just as long as our hearts and minds are always engaged in the service of your lotus feet. Our words are made beautiful by speaking of your activities, just as tulsi leaves are beautified when offered to your lotus feet, and as long as our ears are always filled with the chanting of your transcendental qualities. So the key prayer here is a prayer not to forget. So one final point, the Kumaras also realized, and this is brought up a few verses earlier, that really the Lord reveals himself by his mercy. And Prabhupada gives a nice description of mercy. He says it's rare to achieve the darshan of the Lord's personal form, right? He says, ordinary people cannot see powerful kings. Such persons may deal only with the king's power. his delegates, and his government. Few people can visit a king when he is relaxing in his quarters with his family, yet the king may invite a qualified citizen into his chambers at any time. Whoever is invited has received the king's mercy. That same path of mercy allows us Krishna's intimate association in Vrindavan. So mercy means that we are invited in. We don't have the qualifications per se. We can't just walk in there. We can't just say, I want to see you, Krishna, and Krishna shows up. And then the question is, who is qualified to receive that mercy of Krishna, of us going back to the spiritual world and engaging in Krishna's service? And Prabhupada says, if one is very greedy to enhance his Krishna consciousness, this is a great boon. Tatra lolyam ekalam mulam. This is the best path available. One possessing such a jewel of eagerness, of a deep desire, can attract Krishna's mercy. One cannot force Krishna to invite him. Now, when the Kumaras, when they cursed Jan Vijay, Krishna actually came running to protect his gatekeepers because he was afraid of the Brahmana's curse. So there's just such a lot of sweetness about how, Jan and Vijay didn't even call for Krishna. They just accepted the curse, but Krishna came. Krishna reveals himself in all sorts of beautiful ways, but mercy really is mercy. It's not at all gained or achieved by anything except a sincere desire to serve. So in summary, the four big takeaways from this chapter are this idea of beauty and its essential role in the bhakti practice, Tulsi Devi and her role in our life and her proximity to Krishna, the notion of mercy and, how to ultimately achieve the mercy of seeing and serving Krishna. And then the fourth point is this idea of we should not be afraid of anything except the fear of forgetting Krishna. Nothing in this world, if we have to be afraid of anything, that should be our number one fear, and that should be our number one prayer. Okay, so that's all I have to share. And I am happy to hear some comments or respond to some questions.
Hi, Krishna. Thank you for that lovely presentation of the chapter. And I invite everyone on Zoom and YouTube to please share your comments and questions in the chat. While we're waiting for that, just a couple of things. One, I really liked your Bhakti Tirtha Swami quote, "We are always enhanced by another person's growth." Because just reflecting on that, it's very easy to take these, let's say, material tendencies of like, I want to be the one in the spotlight, the one seen as growing, like I'm doing something right, that desire of recognition. And I know sometimes for myself that envy plays out in wanting to pull that person down. So that quote was really amazing because in an attempt to pull that other person down, I'm hurting myself.
Yeah, that's a beautiful reflection.
Wow.
Yeah, envy is so insidious. Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yeah.
The other thing was just about, am I living by the principles of Bhagavad Gita or creating a harmonious environment or contributing to the advancement of Kali Yuga? So, well, I was considering it in that way of advancing Kali Yuga or being harmonious with Bhagavad Gita, but I'm just curious, like how you would see us being able to assess, because sometimes being aligned with the principles of Bhagavad Gita might appear to create disharmony.
Give me an example of that.
Well, just in the sense of like, if there's, let's say, a perceived injustice, like a devotee is being blasphemed, and so in one sense there's disharmony because we're, generally advised to take a very strong position on the blasphemy of devotees. And so for being able to protect devotees, it might appear disharmonious in the sense of like needing to take a strong stance, but that it is aligned with the principles of Bhagavad Gita. So if you could just, I guess, qualify more or explain more about what is meant by harmonious environment.
Yeah, I think harmonious is kind of life in balance, really. And we may have to respond in strong ways to injustice or to suffering caused by others, so that that suffering is addressed and stopped. But the Gita values particularly are speak to how each one of us as individuals can have a kind of a code, and then how we can gauge how to respond with and interact in the world. And so if you do have to stand up for something or to stop something, it might appear that it's causing some disharmony, but in the long and bigger picture, you're really trying to create harmony. As long as we're in the world, and that's, the Gita is a prime example of it being spoken on the battlefield, that there will be this tension between good and evil, passion and goodness, the demigods and the demons. And our ultimate harmony comes from striving to have our intention in the right place. Our intention is to serve and please Krishna. Our intention is to protect the innocent. Our intention is to protect the devotees, like that. So, it's easy to rattle off principles, but they're really tested in real life situations. And so then having the wherewithal to reflect, to talk with others, to, make decisions that may be the least disruptive, to try to resolve conflicts in ways that create harmony rather than, create more problems, like that. So a consciousness around this effort, that we're not trying to look for some fake peace, but we're really trying to look for some good consciousness, which will automatically bring us to a place of harmony, even if our external environments are rather disharmonious. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's it makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that answer. I'm not seeing anything else in the chats.
Hare Krishna. Ananda Vrindavan Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Premananda.
Jai Premananda, I recognize your voice even before you said your name.
We are also having Sunday feast class, but I saw your topic and I was magnetically attracted towards you, wanting to hear your class. Thank you so very much. Really appreciate that. I don't know, something in this chapter, the non-envious nature of the residents of Vaikuntha, that's something which stands out in this chapter for me. And that verse which you quoted about the position of Tulasi, and prior to that, there is another one which talks Paravatarna Brida Sarasa Chakravaka Datyuta Hamsa Shuka Tittiri Barhinamcha Kola Halo Viramate Achiramatra Muchair Bringadipe Harikadham Ivagayamane. So when the bumblebee is humming the name of Hari, all these wonderful birds of like Chakravaka and all these birds which are singing who have such beautiful voices and such melodies. They just don't make any more singing, and just listen to the sound of the bumblebee. And that actually goes into the next verse regarding all the flowers. They even they are fragrant, and then when Tulasi comes, they respect her for her austerities and her closeness to Krishna. So it's a wonderful painted picture of the spiritual world. And these two verses, it touched my heart. Very, very long time ago, the non-envious nature, and something to aspire for in our life. And just meditating on these two verses, if there is a trace of any feelings other than, this non-envious nature, it is like something I feel so wonderful to relish and cultivate, just because it's there in the Vaikuntha.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for bringing this out as Tulasi, as this one of the most wonderful points in this chapter. I love these two verses so much. I thought I'll just appreciate what you said, and
and here's the thing that I get from those verses is there's just a real freedom if we can get to that point of not being envious. These flowers and these birds, they are just absolutely glorious, and yet they just love, Tulsi, and love the bees singing Krishna's name. There's such freedom in that. So there's such freedom for us to really work consciously to take to when envy shows up in our heart, to really move it on, to just say, I'm not going there. I don't want to feel like this. So as well as, of course, the whole practice of purification helps to dry up that envious spirit. But I love those verses too. Love it. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
One question just came in through YouTube from Amara Mataji. She writes, just based on one of your answers regarding harmony. From that response, I wish to understand that when I am juggling with different services and trying to establish harmony, it feels like there will never be a balance of my desire to serve and my capacity. I advise how to establish harmony in such situations when everything feels important.
A balance, the desire to serve with the capacity to serve. Well, the first thing that comes to my head is just that we all, I think a lot of us, we all have this not enough sense about us. We're not good enough, or we're not done enough, or we have to be better. And so I think we have to practice being very present, very present with our chanting, being very present with each mantra, being very present in whatever service we're called to do at this particular time, in this particular moment. And really just trying to be fully present and do the best we can within where we are. There's always, and that doesn't mean that we're not endeavoring to become better or be better, but I think a lot of it is a balance between, yes, wanting to be at a bigger place or a higher place or a greater capacity, and then, facing just who we are at this particular moment, and what our, what we can do. So I know for me personally, just this idea of doing my best and then, letting it be and then trying my best again the next time, or feeling that I'm enough, and kind of, as one of the Gita values is that being affectionate, accepting Krishna's affection for us, and also being affectionate and kind to ourselves. We have a process that asks a lot of us, and a high level of perfection. We have a strong spiritual practice, and we have it's a substantial commitment that's asked of us. And so we have to make sure that we keep a balance and don't lose the joy of practice, even as we're trying to advance along the path. And that it's not so much about being perfect, but about being present and about being conscious, and about seeking joy in our life and in our service to Krishna. Life happens even while we're I forget, there's some famous quote about, life happens while you're planning your future, life's happening right now, or something like that. So I think what I'm trying to say is, keep valuing who you are and what you're trying to do at the moment, even as we're trying to grow and change spiritually and mature. And if we are sincerely practicing, we should also notice how we're getting better. And our practice should actually be reflected in how we live, and not only how we live, but how we treat others. When we were just talking about envy, how are we responding to others? How are we encouraging others? How are we treating ourselves? Sometimes we treat ourselves worse than we would treat anybody else. So I think I might be going around the world with this answer, but I think I'm trying to say is, you balance both. You balance our sense of not being quite good enough with our sense of, I'm good enough. I am what I am right now, and I keep moving forward.
Wow. Thank you for that. And it looks like the question is resolved. There's no follow-up comments.
I'll be happy to talk to whoever has asked that question offline, or that we can have a phone call or something, because it's a good question.
Okay. If you don't mind, may I share your contact with this devotee if she wishes?
Sure.
Okay. Sure. Well, I'm not seeing anything else in the chat. And so I'd like to, one thing I generally ask the speakers is if there is kind of like a final takeaway message, that if we were to just remember one thing, it's Kali Yuga, we're trying our best. But but if we would just remember, I mean, your class was packed, and if there was just one thing that you would want us to walk away with to take us through the week.
There's a famous poet, I think it's Yeats maybe wrote this poem, but there's a line at the end of the poem that says, "Beauty is truth, and truth beauty. That is all ye know on earth, and all ye need to know." Now, he wasn't directly writing about Krishna, but I think I would like you all to take away this sense of the beauty of Krishna, the beauty of this practice of Krishna consciousness, the inherent beauty in each and every one of us and every living entity and all life on this earth and in this universe, and to really seek beauty, share beauty, create beauty, and be beautiful.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Ananda, Vrindavan, Mataji.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and be well. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. We'll meet again next week to our audience.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.